Howdy y'all, it's Ben. Today I'm coming at you with another video. This time I'm going to be reviewing the 2020 science fiction film directed by Brian K. Bennett called Escape 2120. This film is starring a boy named Dave. I think he is technically an adult, but he is very young. A boy named Dave, played by Edward Pritchard, and he meets two people, Doc, played by Paul Kandarian, and Sally, played by Rose Pacheco. Doc and Sally, they are two scientists, and they bring Dave in because they want somebody to manage their estate when they're gone. The thing is that you learn within the first 10 to 15 minutes is when they say gone, like gone completely, right? Not dead, but gone, because they developed this device that's basically the same effect as cryogenically freezing. It's more or less suspended animation so that you don't age, and they want to appear into the future. And so they create this device, and so then they're able to set themselves up to where they are in a place where they're not going to be bothered, and then they'll come out in 120 years or so, or 100 years. Yeah, it would be 100 years. Anyways, so that's the first part of the movie, but then, and this is revealed in the synopsis that I've seen on IMDb, or sorta, Dave, after they leave, ends up deciding to follow them into the future, and he kind of causes some issues because of that. And so that's what this story is about. And I actually kind of enjoyed it. It was kind of fun. They had an okay use of set. So the movie that I talked about last week, Fabled, right? I felt like they could have done a lot better work with the set. Now I understand budget constraints and all this other stuff, but they didn't really embrace the fantasy that they were going for. I felt like this movie at least tried to go in that direction and play with the future more, and try to at least do some stuff that made it look more futuristic, and they tried to have more fun with it. It felt like more effort on that front, and so I appreciated that. It wasn't fabulous. That was a better job. It was okay. But it was better than, in my opinion, it was better than Fabled. Anyways, so my biggest problem with the movie was the acting. The acting really needed some work. It definitely felt similar to what I talked about last week in Fabled, where it felt like they were playing characters and they were trying to. It didn't feel like these actors embodied the characters. They were putting emotion that wasn't there. Like the emotion inside of them was not there. They were just kind of pretending, but it was kind of obvious. And I just didn't feel like it worked. Some of the lines were cheesy. A lot of times the characters felt similar when they would try to do that, when they would try to act tough and they would say things, and it didn't feel like dynamic characters on that front. Although, yeah, I don't know. See, the interesting thing is I felt like the story was better in this film, and so I'm going to shift a little bit away from the acting, because that's about all I can say, is that across the board, even the three main the actors that I mentioned, everybody felt kind of like, nobody felt that great to me, and sometimes it felt kind of bad. But in any event, I'm going to switch to kind of the more story. I actually liked the story, even though it was a little bit of a mess, a little confusing towards the end. I'm like, okay, what was happening here? But at the same time, for the most part, I was kind of in a state of I don't care. Because it felt like that they drew a simple line, right? Kid, orphan, right? Which they reveal in the beginning of the movie. Kid, orphan, meets two people who kind of give him a family. They go off. He tries to follow them. He ends up in the future. People see him as a danger in the future, and he has to deal with that situation. And then the rest of the movie is him trying to resolve and go through that situation, right? It's not that complicated, and I feel like they stuck to it very well, and it kind of followed through. It's this kid trying to find out who he was. I think that's the best way that I can put it, is this kid was trying to find who he was, right? He was, I don't know if he was exactly at an orphanage. I think it was called a boys club or something like that. That was the movie. And so I think actually I felt it. And even though it wasn't really spelled out, I think I felt it. And it's one of the reasons why I like this movie. And I guess it just kind of popped into my head right now. But it feels like he's finding himself throughout the movie, and they did a good job of developing that, right? You find out who he is, what he wants, where he wants to go, who he wants to be around, right? and he makes purposeful decisions and takes control of his life. And I like that. It was actually a decent story. I really appreciated that. It was simple, but it did the job, because you could feel that, even though some of the dialogue wasn't great, and then the acting was kind of but there were some great, actually, I think the physical acting, right, the nonverbal, I think was better. And I do feel like Edward Pritchard was able to convey that, or at least the writers and the director and the cinematographer were kind of able to morph around it and create that situation where it told that story. But I would give him some credit, the actor. And I mean, that's the major thing. I didn't really notice the score soundtrack too much. The cinematography had some good shots. It wasn't wild out of this world. The sets did look kind of confined and like they were on a low budget, but they did seem like that they were giving it a try to amp some stuff up and make it seem like it's out of this world. Some of the sets felt like they were very confined and that there wasn't really anything outside of that set. It didn't feel like a whole world, that it was just this very confined space like it was on a movie set. And so I guess I would say that that's kind of a downgrade, but at the same time, it wasn't the hugest deal for me. And also, when you understand how expensive filmmaking is, it's easier to look past some of that kind of thing. You know, particularly if they're trying to tell an emotionally compelling story, trying to visually stimulate their audience, and to actually trying to make a good film. And so, I mean, I would say that I liked it. It's probably a movie. I don't know if it's a movie for everybody, but I definitely had some appreciation for this film, even though it did have some glaring flaws. And that's the truth, is that it did have some major issues. But I think I did kind of enjoy watching it. I mean, more than kinda, I definitely enjoyed it at some point, right? And I really appreciate that. So anyways, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Please like, comment what you thought of this video, comment what you thought of this movie if you've seen it, and subscribe. I will see you all later.